Record. Oh,
Okay.
do we go ahead with the spiritual thought in the
Yeah.
recording? It's fine.
It's okay. Yeah, we can record it. So my spiritual thought, hold on, I took screenshot, so just let me show it up. Comes from Elder Uchtdorf's April 2024 conference conference address called A Higher Joy. And I have been a little weighed down recently with the state of the world. Lots of stuff going on, as we all know, a lot of political things, some scary things, some I can't believe this is real life things going on. So I've been trying to find ways to feel better. I have anxiety. I've had it my whole life. And I've just come out of a really tough couple of months. I'm back on my medication, which is helping a lot. But politics and the state of the world is one of my biggest triggers. And so I've really been working on finding ways to find joy and find happiness and while still staying informed, of course. So I really enjoyed this talk. There's a very short section in it where he counsels us to look for it. He says, Jesus taught, seek and ye shall find. I believe this simple phrase is not only a spiritual promise, it is a statement of fact. If we seek reasons to be angry, to doubt, to be bitter or alone, we will find them too. And to that, I would add, um, I don't know about you guys, but seeking out, um, I don't even know how to put it. I will seek out things that are going on, and I don't know why, but I can't stop reading about whatever's going on in the States or Canadian, so our Canadian relationship with the United States. And it just fuels this anger and this hurt inside of me. Um, but anyways, he goes on to say, however, if we seek joy, if we look for reasons to rejoice and to happily follow the Savior, we will find them. We rarely find something we are not looking for. Are you looking for joy? Seek and ye shall find. So I just liked this message because it was a good reminder to seek out the good things in life and yes, stay informed and be aware of what's going on and how it affects you in your everyday life and um, but to also take time to find those tender mercies throughout the day, the good things that are happening, and not just in my home, but in the world around me at work and in my calling and in our communities. Because while there does sometimes feel like scary things are about to happen, there are also a lot of really great and wonderful things happening. So that's my spiritual thought. Seek and you shall find. Look for the good even when it's hard.
Thank you. I I agree with that. It's interesting. I'm taking this class along with social innovation, and they kind of counterbalance each other because social innovation is all about finding solutions, business type solutions to world problems. And so it's been fun having them together because it adds a positive spin on stuff because there are a lot of good people out there doing good things and trying to make a difference, not just to toot their own horn, but they genuinely, wow, I can't even speak today. They care about people. And so it's been fun to have that balance there. But I get it. I don't do social media and I rarely watch the news because it's depressing.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I find I know it's bad for me, and I know like what it does to my mental health and my overall wellness. But hey, you get going in these rabbit holes, and it's just like I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I've had to set limits on myself for social media and news watching lately. So Getting better. I'm getting there, but
Good.
I have my days and my
Good.
moments.
Hey, we all have to do that. Set boundaries so we don't go down those rabbit holes that are dark. All right. Invite members to share some of the most meaningful takeaways or nuggets for the material they studied this week. Anybody want to start with that?
I wrote public charities and private foundations have some similarities, but several differences. The founder of a 501(c)(3) cannot be the owner. An effective nonprofit have built community support and financial solvency to remain in business. And without a comprehensive data tracking system, a nonprofit organization will not be able to secure grant funding or develop the trust necessary for receiving charitable giving.
Yeah. Um, I was more about, I guess there was a lot of information. I was more about the uplifting quotes in between everything. I gravitated more to that. And so when you move beyond your fear, you feel free. And I think that came from the Who Moved My Cheese video. Um, and if you do things differently, things will get better. So um, yeah. Eric, did you have anything?
Yeah, I got a lot of things. But I like the one that says, "Work for a cause, not for applause. Live life to express, not to impress. Don't strive to make your presence noticed. Just make your absence felt."
Yeah, I liked that one too. That was a good one. Is there
I have a
anybody else?
Yeah,
Carly?
I have a few minutes before my son's next game. Sorry, I'll kind of be like I'm listening.
Okay.
Um, so I also was kind of enjoyed all of the quotes in between the information this week. So two of them stood out to me. The one was by Mark, the first one was Mark Twain. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And also, you can do what I cannot do. I can do what you cannot do. Together, we can do great things. Um, Especially that second one that I shared. There's so much power in people coming together and working together and having all those different voices and ideas contributing. Um, they get it rounds things out nicely, and I think that's when you see a lot of great change happening. It's when you have all those different voices and ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I must admit, I've kind of found the You Moved My Cheese video quite intriguing because um some of the other videos were all kind of upbeat, I guess. But that one gave a little bit of a realistic spin. Like some people are afraid to like move and go out into the maze and try to figure it out. They're still going, no, it's got to be here. My cheese is going to come back. I just know it. And then there's those that go and find the cheese and all they do is gorge on it, but they don't really entice others to come. And so anyway, I felt like that was a lot of, you're talking about leadership right there, a lot of different types of leadership. All right. Briefly share some of your ideas for creating a new charitable nonprofit 501(c)(3) to address the problem of abandoned babies in South Africa. Question was, who do you want on your board? So who would you want as board members?
For me, I had a really long list for people I want on my board. I have healthcare workers, so like doctors and nurses. Um, I have a social worker on there, um, community health, like public health promoters and teachers. fundraising experts. That's what I had on mine.
Yeah. I'd almost think some moms that may be in the position, like if you could find some mothers who are homeless or sick with AIDS, because that seemed to be the trigger, that were in that position and say, what is it that would work? What can we bring? You know, because they're living in it. Um,
Yeah, I also had community members on there. One of my ideas was to have just regular people, as many people, I guess, as you can get, trained as kind of first responders in the very like obviously not in an intense way, but like first aid skills, know how to handle, if you come across a baby, what are you gonna do? So maybe have somebody who's heading that area up, or even just members of the community who've been impacted by it, who see the need and are wanting to help out.
yeah. Yeah. The board could be quite big, but you probably want to keep it small too at the same time. I don't know. What would your mission and specific focus be? I put that my focus would be more just having places to surrender, safe places to surrender your children or other children, and reduce the abandonment rates. Set up something that maybe provided a place for moms to go. But yeah, anybody else?
Yeah,
I always focus on, sorry, Eric, I always focus on education because if people know the miracle of life, what it is, how it is, like I just saw this little picture, just a little drawing of a pregnant woman, and it said, "Did you know that when your mother was pregnant with you, uh, she or when your grandmother was pregnant with your mom, and your mom, because all the women are already born with all their eggs, so you were in your grandmother's um, tummy, right? So I just think that we need to educate women, especially of what a miracle it is that they are partaking in this creation process, and that a child is really an inheritance of God, a gift, and not to take it lightly and to just treat these newborns like who they are. They are children of God, and so dependent on somebody to give them warmth and food, and maybe because this week also my first great niece was born. So my sister, her oldest daughter, is the first great grandchild for my parents. And so it's been
Congratulations.
very tender to think about newborns. And I could in my wildest dreams, I would think of just abandoning a newborn. Um, I had two stillbirths, which were so hard and so heart-wrenching, but for some reason the Lord allowed us to go through that. But just having a live baby and abandoning it, not even putting it to somebody's care, but not just abandoning it. I can't fathom. I'm like, my brain cells cannot comprehend this, or my soul cannot comprehend it, but I'm not in their shoes, right? So I think education would help with some of this if we could just change the perception of people of what a child is. It's not a burden, it's not a mistake, or it's not a sin, but he or she is a child of God.
Yeah. Eric, what were you going to say?
I was going in the same way. What I wrote was the organization which would operate alongside a 501(c)(3) framework aims to provide daily outreach services in local communities. So I would have volunteers and staff would make rounds in the area to identify individuals who require assistance, whether it's feeding their babies, addressing psychological needs, or offering guidance on parenting challenges. So about the same thing that Lily and you have said, just like following, like a follow up on the people around, and like each day you have someone that go go just check out on the streets if there is no baby or left around or things like that, and just teach the people how to build a house, and at the same time just to have some money to help them out and have like a community garden, uh, to be able to feed their little ones and also themselves.
Yeah, I think some of the other part too of the education process is also educating them about healthcare because some of these women are ill, and that's part of their problem is they see themselves as ill and not able to probably care for a child, and because they can't even care for themselves. And so part of that education awareness has to go alongside on how to care for themselves, being in circumstances of illness and whatnot. So
You ever watched the movie Babies?
say that again.
Did you ever watch the movie Babies?
The
Did
one
some
that
of you
they
watch? No?
no, the one that she listed or outside a different movie.
I think it's a different movie.
Oh,
I
no, I
don't
haven't.
quite remember that, but that was in Africa, that was in China, or every part of the world. All babies are raised and are being cared of, and it was interesting. So
Oh,
that could be
interesting.
something you could watch.
So it was like an orphanage then, kind of thing?
It was a real movie on the theaters. You could watch that. It was just to see the differences in between nations. So that was quite like interesting.
Oh, wow. And no, I haven't seen it. What might your logic model look like? Here, I'll just list a few of these questions. How would you elicit volunteers and community support? How would approach, how would you approach the problem as serving rather than fixing or helping? And what will you do to ensure your nonprofit is sustainable? And where would you look for grant funding? Um, Well, one of my ideas was to have strategic locations where they could go to it, even if they've made the decision to leave the baby, to leave the baby, and so the baby isn't in the garbage or in a dustbin or in wherever in the ditch off to the side of the road, that there is actually locations that are accessible to them. Um, accessible to them so that they could leave them and have them. As far as volunteers and stuff, I think that number grows as people see a program that's functioning and working. People are drawn to it. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the video too. Is that anybody else have any other ideas like with funding and grants and stuff? We could reach out to companies because there's obviously going to be equipment and supplies that are going to be needing educational materials, along with shelter. So there's plenty of different avenues that different companies who want to help in the community, but don't know if they have anything they could offer that could offer those things. And that's
I mentioned that one of our partners could be a company like Huggies, that some of their profit could go to us and then they can give some, newborn diapers,
Yeah. Kind of like a Ronald McDonald House, you know, how they have a place for families to stay that have children that are very sick. Same kind of idea too. Let's see. Anything else that you want to mention about
But
this?
yeah, I wrote that as students at university, sometimes we're looking for like experiences and internships, and especially in psychology. So that's the field that I'm studying right now. So uh, probably that could be something that to help the parents with their children. If they have issues like mental health issues, we could help them out, and that could be a way of helping without giving money, but at least to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to offer your time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of, yeah, monetary, but just go and support. Yeah, I like that. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's most everything we've talked about. Um, it just like an evaluation plan, I felt like evaluation plan would be kind of hard, because you'd want to track, the rates of abandonment and safe surrenders. You wouldn't know if they were going to originally abandon, or if they, now that they have a safe spot to abandon, they were going to, that one I felt was hard. I also suggested having a help hotline. Um, and that is one thing you could get some sort of data work from, is how many times it was used, who used it, were they able to get the support they needed, that sort of thing. But anyway, all right. Um, so it says just briefly share your one-page proposal, which we kind of already did. Anybody want to add anything more? Got it covered?
I thought that was very hard for me to do, like it said, make it like a letter of proposal, like you're asking for a grant, and I'm like, oh, I'm so new at this, but um I said that we would need about $5,000 per month. And so for different things, even though we have a lot of volunteer work, but still you need to rent a place, and you need to pay like maintenance workers and a secretary. And so I don't know if that's realistic or not, but anyway.
You were much better than me. I did not have time to put, I'll admit, to me this week there was a lot of reading. You know how it seems like it's up and down with this reading? Sometimes there's a ton and sometimes there's not. And then when I saw that, I'm like, okay, you just had me read a whole bunch of stuff. And now I've got to write a grant proposal. And so I did more of an outline. I did not write so much a grant proposal. I'm sure I'll be docked a few points, but so good job. I'm impressed. Um, so the next part, is there's a case study number 2 that is in the charge. I don't know if any of you guys have the charge open. That if we want to take a few minutes to ourselves and read it, or if we want to read it out loud.
I just glanced over it. It's about gang violence, but I did not read it all through.
Yeah, I glanced over it just like you and stuff. It should be a quick read. If everybody has it up, go ahead and take a moment just to read it really quick, and then we'll talk. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, are we almost ready? Still want to get.
Yeah. I think the people do themselves a disservice when they segregate themselves, you know. You see the 13% is only the blacks in America, but it seems like they have the most crime and the most poverty. And when we went some years ago, we went to one of these, the Hopi reservation, and they still have like dirt floors and mud homes, you know, and I don't understand how we can live in this country with such inequality of life because we choose it, you know. So I think, you know, the government, I guess I could see things from the perspective of somebody who moved here uh from Guatemala where there is a lot of poverty. But you know, you pay your taxes there and there's no roads and there's no public schools. Here, at least you pay your taxes, you know, you have roads and schools, right? Hopefully they're teaching good things, but just like here when there's a lot of gang violence. And it seems like the government is afraid of it or aiding and abetting it because there's no stop. And so they're just people are just killing each other. Kids are just killing each other for sport. And I think we could do a better job of you know, like I said, education, but also of enforcing a law where killing a person is bad and you'll be found and go to jail instead of you know, doing it again and again and again and being released and doing it again and being released and just it could be a better solution than kids just dying for, you know, for gang violence.
I tend to agree with you. It's interesting they picked Chicago. Chicago's actually a pretty safe city. South Chicago is not. I lived outside of Chicago for about 5 years, about an hour outside, and we would go downtown all the time, even at night. The downtown area is very nice and pretty safe, but South Chicago is not. Again, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And that is kind of, you know, these gangs, there is education involved or lack of it. There's a cultural thing involved, and it's really, really kind of sad. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Indian reservations. My sister takes in foster children from the Indian reservation, and she's had kids in her home that never like eaten a strawberry before or even seen blueberries. She has to train them. I mean, they can be teenage boys. She has to train them on how to take a shower because they've never had running water. Now, with that being said, the reservation has plenty of money. They make money off of their casinos and stuff, but there is a lot of pride. There is some corruption, and there is just choice. And when I say pride, they don't want to do it the white man way. And so they just sit in their squalor, which is really unfortunate. And they have a lot of alcoholism. So, and they have programs. There are programs available trying to rescue children out of those circumstances, and some are being rescued. But again, it's a cultural thing. I agree with you. We live in the United States, for Pete's sake. We should be able to have a handle on this, but the reservations are their own country, their own sovereignty. And so they have rules and laws that don't pertain to the rest of the United States, and vice versa. And I don't know if you knew that, but the Indian reservations are pretty much their own. So for the brief, though, it says what resources were helpful to you in securing information for your brief evaluation. Did I miss something? Because I'm like, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Did anybody else have a brief evaluation? So it says, so what do you propose needs to happen to solve this problem? Is your idea a real possibility, or is it a fairy tale? What is your mission statement? Where would you get the funds for this? And how would you make your nonprofit sustainable?
I feel like this is a really, really hard case study for us to like, because I think there's so many deep-rooted systemic factors that it kind of does feel like a fairy tale to have to solve this problem, because where do you even start, right? There's yeah, so many factors that contribute to it. There's like a lack of education. Um, People living in these areas, they don't make as much money. They're maybe not unionized. There's racism involved. There's capitalism where wealth and power is, you know, held by just a few people. Like, I don't even know where to even begin when it comes to gang violence and communities like this where they have these kinds of issues. Um, like I don't know how people decide where to even start.
I don't know either. My gut says, start with the youth because they're teachable. Um, or at least you hope they're teachable. Where the parents, you've got to bring the parents in on this, but they may not be as teachable as the youth are. Um, but again, I agree with you. It almost sounds like a fairy tale in trying to make a difference. Um, I I'm aware of programs. Some of them work for some people. It is a small amount and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work trying to you're basically reprogramming every little computer on how to live better, how to live more righteously. Um, so I don't know what my mission statement, I'm with you. I don't know what the mission statement, you really have to get to the government of that area to buy in.
And also, I think, like you said, with the youth, starting with the youth, because we shouldn't tell them that they're victims, you know. This victimhood mentality is bringing a lot of people down because if you're a victim, then you can't do anything, you know. And so I don't like that some of the kids are just so borne down by, I can't do anything because all the systems are oppressing me. And they see who's the most oppressed. And so that's whom they elevate. And I'm like, we all have hands, legs, eyes, and ears. If we can read, we can get educated. And, that's why we teach the kids how to read in the first place. And so, you know, it starts with that. And every family, every mother should teach their children that they are capable and, not to be victims, but victors in any circumstance.
I think the issue with that though is that this isn't just a new generation problem, right? This has been going on for decades and decades. So there is that cycle of mom maybe isn't educated, dad's probably not educated, grandma and grandpa probably aren't educated either. So if they're not educated and they're not able to see that and to have the drive to make the change, then things aren't going to change. Like it's really hard for the children and youth to claw their way out of those circumstances, out of poverty, to even understand that, hey, you know what? I don't know how to read, and that's a big deal, you know? So I
Well,
think
go ahead. I was going to say, not only that, those who actually pull themselves out of poverty and actually change don't stay. They get out. And so it's hard to change a system when the good are leaving. They are not sticking around, and they're the ones that could make a difference. because they understand what that environment is about and what it took for them to get out. So there's this other social issue that needs to be addressed, and that is trying to make a change, and those that can change to stay, to continue to make that change. It kind of reminds me, there's a few times years ago when Gordon B. Hinckley was the prophet, he visited the Indian reservations in Arizona. And it was a hush hush because they didn't want everybody going to see the prophet in Arizona. He wanted to go visit the Indian nations there, specifically to talk to them. And he addressed them. He says, you guys have got to change. You've got to change your way of living. You've got to change your standard and become the men the Lord want you to become the women the Lord wants you to become. It didn't last very long. I wish it was a significant change. I know there's a few temples that have been built out just outside of the Indian reservations with the idea that they would have a temple close by to attend, and very few are attending it. With that being said, too, I used to live in Tempe, which is center. It's a landlocked city next to Phoenix, and a lot of the membership were moving out of there, moving out to the outskirts. It was more affordable house. You got bigger home for your money, and there were stronger wards out there. Elder Uchtdorf came, and he told us and literally almost begged us, please stay. Please stay and build up your neighborhoods and build up your home. So if you can get them to stay, I think that's something that would help make a significant difference. I just don't know what kind of carrot it would take somebody to want to stay and have a family in that environment.
And that's the thing, because my dad, and I don't want to get into too many of the history, but some of his family came from Oaxaca, Mexico, and they send everybody to study abroad, but they come back to their city and they have paved the town so beautifully. They have made beautiful buildings. They have come back with the knowledge that college gives them to build and to make things better for themselves. And they pride themselves in, coming back to their town and making it better. Now, with these crime-ridden gang violence cities, that's hard because you come back and you get shot. So whatever you learned and wanted to bring back is just you're taken down by it. So it's a quite a plight that these cities have and these people have, because even if I were begged to stay in a place that's not good for me, I would take it to the Lord and say, Lord, forgive me, but I'm not gonna stay. I would rather go to a different place where I can actually have a house and my children can play freely in a park and not get shot up, just because I need to stay in a place where, they can always make the boundaries bigger or something for the church, but it's a big ask to tell a family stay where you're not comfortable living, right?
Right. So with that in mind, what kind of program would we want to establish? Would we want to establish something that maybe was on the cusp of the community? I mean, not in it, but close enough to it that there is like a refuge for these children to go, and where we could help educate them, help them with their education, tutor them, and encourage them to come back and make a difference.
I got something to say on that. I was raised in the part of town that was kind of like violent also, and like every week we would have like people being killed or hurt or like drugs and art stuff. Uh, it's weird to hear that from Montreal and Quebec area, but at that time when I was younger, that there was a lot of teenagers and people like that, and it's mostly always when people are getting at the teenage age. So it's harder because they don't know themselves. So um, just to know with my own family, when I look at my stepdaughter and she tried to kill herself and things like that, I realized that even people in the prison that I visited and on the hospital, the only thing they need at first is to be listened to, that someone could listen to them, and then you could know what are the needs not met, and then you could like go further and have like all kind of like resources that could help them. But at first, like the last experience that I had like a few months ago now, 2 months ago, I told you about, I think at the chapel when the guy came in and wanted to shoot everybody. I don't know if I told you guys, but that was the thing to do. That was just to listen to him, and he calmed down and everything went fine. And people were so amazed because it took me only 30 seconds to calm down the guy, and we were all safe uh, after that. So I think sometimes they just need to be listened. And since nobody listened to them, they just get violent because their needs are not met. They are not expressing themselves. So I think if we would have like a team like of street workers, I don't know if you say that in English, but in French we call it street workers, kind of like therapists, but on the street, and they try to help people that have issues in their lives, not only with food but with psychological health, and I think that could help out. I know a lot of people that go in prisons to visit people and to try to influence them, not to teach the gospel, but just to have a certain influence.
Oh, that's a good idea. A street walk worker that's kind of like a social worker, kind of
Yeah, that was the
therapist.
name that I was looking for, social worker.
Okay. But yeah, but even so, they work the streets. Like they're out, they must work as a group though. They don't go out solo. Do they just,
Exactly. So
okay.
what I know is one of my friends is doing that. He is on a bus, and there are like two or three people in that huge bus, and they just go into the streets, and if they look for people that don't have like shelters or things like that, they will help them out. So that's the way of doing it. Instead of like being behind the desk or something, they will go help people in the street.
Yeah. That is definitely one way. Does anybody else have any great ideas? I don't know where we'd get our funding.
No, that's hard.
Yeah, maybe the businesses that are trying to stay alive. I had one experience. We went into Washington, D.C., and it was middle of the day. It was like noon. We were super thirsty. We Googled on our phones where a 7-Eleven was, so we can get a soda, and found a parking spot, went across this little neighborhood street, went to the 7-Eleven where and armed, now he didn't have like an armed gun, but he had an armed guard was there at the door of the 7-Eleven. He followed us. We went to the drinks, discovered there were no cups. So we went up to the front desk and asked for how do we get a cup? And they said, well, oh, you buy the cup first. So we paid for the cup, each of us, and we went to fill it up. And the guard stayed next to us the whole time and said, please hurry and get out of here. And we were like, what's the problem? And looked around and we were the only white people, but that wasn't offensive to us. We didn't care, but apparently they cared. And that was in Washington, D.C., and in the middle of the day. And so that was probably the only time I've ever felt like, oh, I think I should be scared. I need to get out of here. And so being in those environments is unnerving, and I don't know how to solve it other than, kind of like what missionaries are doing with missionary work and just trying to reach those that are ready to listen.
Really, you make me think about something that we did here in Montreal, and I think it's brand new for the church. The church suggested to make these vending machine that people, or I don't know if you heard about that, but people are kind of like they're free to buy a pillow, for example, or a bed for someone that and these are cards into a vending machine, and they just pay the amount of money they want, and they give that as a gift to the person that needs it. So uh, that could be a solution to find funding. I don't know, grants or.
Yeah, that could be a really good solution. Absolutely. All right. If anything else, I don't think we have a great solution to it. I think we've have a lot of thoughts and ideas, and we probably could keep hashing it, but I say we move on. Anybody want to add to that? All right. It says, if time permits, discuss and explore some of the following questions or concepts above. Choose the questions most meaningful to the group. Which are the questions that we got to choose, what we wanted to answer, give four answers. So are there any questions in particular that stood out to anybody?
I'll just start with the who moved my cheese. I just said the message I gleaned from this story is that we may get stuck in a frame of thinking and refuse to change. The mice's instincts did not allow them to wallow in their misery, while the humans did. We are sometimes hemmed in the same place due to fear, comfort, and denial. When you change what you believe, you change what you do. We should not be afraid to adapt to change. I thought that was so insightful. I remember this book coming out, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. At my work, they were talking about it because, we do need to learn how things have been done before, because we have a foundation of how things work, but we cannot just always do the same things. I was listening today to a podcast that they were talking about the changes in the garments and how they're changing in the hot climates. They're doing tank tops, and so some people are traveling to those places to buy the garments to wear, because they can't wait till December when it's gonna go worldwide. And I'm like, are we that spoiled? Are we that
Mhm.
shallow? But anyway, um,
I'm not traveling to get them, but we are that spoiled. Okay.
so it's just I don't know. Sometimes we get in this frame of mind, or I think we're just spoiled, we just have the things that we want when we want them now. And I think we're for a good awakening when, we're, we have our gonna be judged according to what the Lord, I don't know. I always think if I were a pioneer, I would completely have failed. But, thank goodness my challenges are different, but what am I sacrificing? What am I doing in my life?
Yeah. I answered what are common pitfalls of proposals that fail? And I just put one major issue is misalignment with the funder's priorities, where the proposal does not clearly fit the funder's mission or goals. Another issue is failure to follow the submission guidelines, such as formatting, deadlines, or require content that can lead to immediate rejection. I also, if proposals lack clarity or coherence, usage vague objectives, excessive jargon, or unclear methodologies, fail to engage reviewers will be rejected. And she talked all about that in her video. Um, Weak evaluations and sustainability plans are another common pitfall because funders expect detailed with simple, clear explanation for strategies for measuring success and ensuring long-term impact. And finally, unrealistic budgets or insufficient justification for requested funds can cause an organization to lose credibility and make the proposal less compelling. So I've interviewed my people for the mission that we had, and one of them I interviewed is she started and runs a charity called Solely for Kids, and she put shoes on children in Mexico because they can't afford them. And I asked her, I said, so do you get any grant funding? And she's like, no, we don't. I don't even know how to go about doing that. Everything, her whole organization runs completely on volunteers. There is no paid um, positions. So she's at the mercy of her volunteers. She's grateful for everything everybody does. And this year they're going to put over 6,100 pairs of shoes on children. That's 6,100 children they're serving that can't even get shoes. She says they go into Mexico, into these areas that are just very impoverished. But I thought about this and I'm like, maybe I could take on the challenge of writing a grant. I've never done that before and see what happens. But sometimes they're rejected because they didn't even try in the first place. They never
Correct.
tried.
When I was in Pathway, one of the girls in our group, that was her job, writing grants. And she said she wrote, I don't know, 10 grants a month or something, and she would always get the money because she knew how to write them. Like you said, she knew the deadlines, the jargon, everything. She did it right, and she always got them. So I'm like, I need to keep this girl's number. Now I've forgotten her name.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is very important to, to see what's out there, to explore and take it, because you are trying to do good. You're not just gonna take it for yourself, and the good that you want to do with it and how much you can help. Like when we started this unit, my family and I are going to spend some time in Guatemala this summer, and I started thinking, what if I were to ask for donations or something to get kids, like art supplies or notebooks or shoes and clothing or diapers for orphans or something, and explain to them that all this money was going to go get to these places, and show the receipts. This is how much I used. This is the money you gave me, and this is where I used it, and stuff like that. Because I think people want to give, but they don't want to be lied to. They don't want to be gypped.
Paid with.
Yeah. I asked her, one of my questions I asked her is why do you do this? I mean, why did you choose to do this? And she said, it was because I wanted my children to see how much they have and how much they can give. And she says, my children didn't have that understanding. And it wasn't until they went and saw and worked and served and literally they put on the shoes on the children. They physically put them on and have that joy. She says, that's why I do what I do. So anyway, anybody else have anything? Eric, did you want to share anything? I know Carly's and
No,
her.
except that, like Lily said, for the vending machine I was talking about, you got a receipt also for your, how do you say that, for your statement for the end of the year. So that's perfect. And people, they don't have to be members to help in that. So that's great also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think they call it
when
the
it is
giving machine. Oh, go
when
ahead.
Yeah,
it is 501(c)(3), then it is a tax deductible donation, right? So
yeah.
it would be nice to already be organized that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know that that she had put in an application to be part of the giving machine for the solely for kids. She said she had applied, but had not been rejected, but not accepted either. So anyway, she's hoping. Well, we have 1 minute left at 6:59. Anybody want to add to anything? We have one more week and we're done. So I'm pretty excited. Thank you for working with me. Next week I'm going to be traveling, and so I'll be off the plane in time to get on the call. So
Oh, good. I'll host, and hopefully you can get in and we can still hear some of your thoughts, but have a good trip.
thank you. I'm going to go see my son. It's spring break. So
Yay. Fun.
yay. So anyway, all right.
Well, have
Sounds
a good
good.
night.
We'll talk to you guys later.
All
Have a
right,
good one.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna stop the